morning, April, your cat health coach here, and Mr. Stubby doing a quick kind of little unexpected video today. I was trying to finish my series on how to properly switch your cat's diet from one certain type of food to another, and we've done the switching from dry to canned food, and then I was going to show how to switch from one type of canned food to a different brand of canned food. However, I have a kitty parent right now who actively needs help switching her cat from a canned food diet to a raw food diet and is having trouble. So I'm jumping on to do this video today to help her. And this is a really common issue that I'm told over and over and over is people will come to me and say, you know, I've wanted my cat to be on a raw diet, I've heard all the benefits, I've looked into it, sounds great, but I present it to them and they don't eat it and they walk away. And what's the problem and what can I do? Well, it can be a bit of a challenge to get your cat to eat a raw food diet, especially if they've been used to eating something very, very yummy for years, like a lower quality canned diet, or especially from a kibble diet. You will never, I can't say never, I mean, I don't know every cat, but I've had a lot of years experience, and you will almost never get a cat to ever go from kibble to raw. It needs to be a progression, and that's why I'm doing this set of videos. If you don't have your cat adjusted to eating a wet food diet first, at least a canned food diet first, then they are just not going to take to raw. So what we're going to do, and Stubby's probably like, yeah, Mom, I just want some of that food. I'm going to show you here. I've got a plate with your canned food. So if your cat's currently eating canned food and you're trying to get them to move to raw food, the important thing, number one, is to make sure you're feeding the canned food twice a day. And that's how you want to feed on average across the board for most cats. You want to feed, say, 8 o'clock in the morning, and then maybe 7 or 8 at night, whatever your schedule is that works for you. One meal of can in the morning, one meal of can at night, and get them used to this feeding schedule, this twice a day feeding schedule first before you try to move forward with the raw. And yeah, I'll put you down so I don't just tease you with the food. There you go, bud. So then we have a raw here. And this is actually, might look a little different to you guys than the raw you're used to seeing. This is actually a raw fish that we like to give Stubborn like a couple times a week. It's good to give a little bit of fish, not too much fish. That's a whole nother video. But anyway, this is a white fish. So what you're going to do for your cat that you're trying to transition is, it's actually, I don't know why I feel like I should present it this way. We've actually found it's best to try to get them to eat the new food, which is the raw food, in the morning. So what you'll want to do is present them with the raw food at the morning feeding, 7 a.m., 8 a.m., whenever it is that you feed them, present them with the raw meal. If they don't eat it, that's okay. Pick it up, put it back in the container. We're gonna try again the next day. Feed them the normal size canned food meal that evening, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, whenever you feed. Okay, so that's day one. Then day two, you're gonna try it again. Try to present the raw meal in the morning, same time. And then if they eat a little bit, great. Sometimes they still might skip again. Then present the canned food again the next evening, same time. Now, by the third day, what you want to start doing, if they're not really taking to the raw food, I'm sorry, my other phone here on Instagram's battery's dying, so it's telling me I really need to hurry up. But if you are having some challenges, what you're going to start doing by day 3 is you're going to start cutting this meal down by about a quarter each day. So you're going to take away about that much canned food for that third day. And then do the same thing again. Present the raw in the morning on 4th day, the canned again in the evening on 4th day. Again, if they're still not eating the raw very well, you'll want to take away about a quarter again. And you can keep doing this until, you know, the point where you have about this much food. You don't want to go any lower than this. It is very important to make sure your cat is eating something. They don't have to eat a lot, and sometimes, unfortunately, you have to make them a little bit hungry, or actually very hungry, to really make that transition. But sometimes if we make them really hungry just by presenting them only the one small meal they eat for a couple days, then they'll take to the raw, and once they get started on it, then they'll adjust and they'll love it and they'll eat really, really well. But you want to make sure that they are definitely eating. You don't want a cat to ever go more than 24 hours without eating, or they actually can get into a health crisis like a pancreatitis, and it can be a severe situation. So you want to be careful with that, but you just have to kind of stay firm and have a strong backbone with them that sometimes to make this transition, they are going to be hungry for a couple days and they are going to be mad at you, and all that comes with that. We all know, incessant meowing and, you know, going crazy and whatnot, but you just have to know that it's for the best health of your cat. You're doing the best thing for them, getting them through this transition. So hopefully once you cut this meal down by this much, by that next morning when you feed day 4, day 5, the raw meal, they're going to start gobbling it up, because by this time they've been pretty hungry. And so then at that point you'll just take the canned food away completely, and you're going to give 2 full meals of the raw food, and they'll be eating really well by that point. I was going to say one other thing. Now I just lost my track. But yeah, so anyhow, you know, this transition really should be only about a period of 4 to 5 days on average. Oh, that's what I was going to say. And typically when you do this process and you start taking away that quarter of the canned food, you will get there in about 4 to 5 days. Now, another trick you can do is if they're really struggling and still not wanting to eat in the morning, you can start to push back that feeding time in the morning a bit if you have to. So if your normally feeding time was 7, you can push it back to 8, push it back to 9, you know, whatever works with your schedule. If you're home more or whatnot, you can even push it a little later. Basically, the longer you make them wait from their evening meal and make them fast until the morning meal, you know, it just helps. They're going to feel more hunger, and they're going to have more motivation to eat the raw food better. I also have a whole nother video that I can link below to show everybody raw food toppers, and I'll do that. That's another thing that I have really utilized in the past to add to the raw food to help entice them to get started eating it. It's basically adding some extra really healthy yummies, but stuff that's appropriate to mix with raw. Because that's my last point here, is please don't ever try to get your cat to switch foods to a raw food diet by mixing the other foods in, like mixing the dry food or mixing the canned food into the raw food. Because what a lot of us don't realize, what I used to, you know, never would have known, is that the raw food to them actually digests very quickly. It has to. It's supposed to. That's how it works. How they don't get sick from raw food, even if it has some bacteria levels in it, because it goes in, it's in its raw form, and cats' bodies are meant to just digest it very quickly. So they'll digest the whole raw meal in about 2 to 3 hours. Whereas a cooked food, which is a kibble, a canned food, a commercially prepared cooked food, something like Fresh Pet, Vital Pet, whatever, those are cooked, and those foods are going to take up to 8 to 9 hours to digest. So you don't ever want to be mixing the canned, and I'm not going to do it because I don't want to ruin his meal, but you don't want to mix the canned with the raw, thinking that that's how you're going to transition them and present them the meal together. Number one, they probably won't eat it that way. And then number two, it creates that situation that actually can be then potentially harmful for them, because if they aren't given just the raw food to digest very quickly, then what happens is if you're feeding the raw food with the canned food together, they eat this both together, and by the time it gets into their digestive tract, the cooked food kind of slows up the process of digestion for the raw food, and now you can end up in a situation where they could get sick from the raw food had there been a slight contaminant of a bacteria, or just, you know, a heavy load of even normal bacteria that kind of harbors on raw meat that sits in the fridge, as we all know. It really needs to go through their system quickly, so don't ever mix the two foods. That's why you have to do this kind of rotating, feed the raw in the morning, canned at night, raw in the morning, canned at night, until you get to that point where they're eating it well and you're feeding only meals of raw. So, okay, try to keep it as short as possible, but very important info. So anyway, that is it on how to transition your cat from eating canned food diet to raw food diet, and I hope that helps.